Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Mindful Place Summit. Today, we have the opportunity to interview Dr. Elizabeth Joy Erwin. She is a professor at Montclair State University in the U.S., where she prepares current and future teachers to think critically, reflect deeply, and teach inclusively. The commitment to educational equity and inclusive practices have been the focus of her work for the past 30 years. Elizabeth's latest book, The Power of Presence, A Guide to Mindfulness Practices in Early Childhood, focuses on parenting with young children to promote justice in the world and peace within. Thanks so much for watching. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Mindful Place Summit. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Elizabeth Joy Erwin. Thank you so much for coming to speak with us today.
I am so delighted to be here. Thank you for the invitation, Crystal. Great to be here.
You're very welcome. Now, before we get started, I just wanted to touch on this book that you have written. It is called The Power of Presence, a mindfulness guide for practices in early childhood. So could you just let us know what stemmed that inspiration to write that book?
Hmm. I appreciate the question. It just came out and I'm super excited. It was not really on my radar, actually. The publishers approached me and wanted a book on mindfulness. And I thought, well, yeah, I kind of kept my personal life and yoga, meditation kind of separate from my professional life. But over the past couple of years before that, I had started blending them. And when that opportunity came, I just thought, absolutely, because I think children are naturally mindful anyway. And I think what's happening is we're, looking at children who are stressed and anxious and all of those kinds of things, as opposed to, which, by the way, mindfulness works for anybody and everybody. But looking at children as whole kind of human beings and thinking about mindfulness not as a tool or not as a fix-it approach, but really as a way of being. So it's a longer question because I really have been thinking about mindfulness. I think all my life I've been interested in awareness and just noticing. And so this was a wonderful opportunity to have conversations with parents and educators around the world.
I absolutely love that. So we are going to do a little book draw. So stay tuned for some more information. We'll talk about that at the end of our chat. But I just wanted to bring back, you talk about awareness and you talk about that connection piece. And when we look at that within our body as kind of like our navigational system, right? Can you speak a little bit about that and what that kind of looks like?
Interesting. I really do think that the body is like a navigational system. It is constantly letting us know where we are, where we're going, what is needed. And so our bodies are an indicator of where we are. And what we as adults need to do, I think, is better read those signals. We're constantly getting signals from children as well, about what they need. And I think what's happened is we've often become disconnected from our bodies and from those messages. And if we can't really read our own signals, we're not going to be able, to read children's signals. And so one of the ways to do that, I think, is to notice just our narrative, our discourse. I hear people say, "Oh, I'm so exhausted," or I can't handle this, or which really is very powerful, and it's important to tune in and tap into that to really unpack the layers of what is going on. I mean, obviously, it's natural for all of us to feel tired at times and all of that, but it's almost like the warning light coming on in a car. It's our navigational system, and when that warning light in a car comes on, we slow down. We might take a rest. We might take it to a gas station, or to look in and investigate a little more about what's going on. Well, the same thing happens with our bodies. We're getting kind of warning signals if something's off or not balanced or not working. So by the time we get depleted, it's like a total breakdown in a way, physically and emotionally. And so I just like that idea of thinking about our bodies as these navigational systems and really tuning into the messages, including our words. that we use with children and even our inner talking. And the other thing I just wanted to say about this, which was interesting around writing the book because I hadn't intended to write a whole chapter on it, but I ended up writing a chapter on safety, personal safety. And part of that came from a lecture I attended and then learning a whole lot more about Dr. Stephen Porges's work. And not to go into too much detail, it's written in the book, but he had developed this notion of the polyvagal theory. And what he says is, and I have a quote, that's why I'm just looking down, when the body feels safe, it can regulate itself. And it sounds so simple, like, of course, but it really shifted everything for me because what he was talking about is that we're almost in this, not almost, we are in a constant state of perceiving threat, children as well. And so if that's happening on an ongoing basis, this notion of like rushing and protecting, and we can't possibly feel safe, and therefore we can't possibly regulate ourselves. And so it's a larger conversation, but that whole idea of just understanding that this personal quest for safety is really the most important, um, really the most important idea for all children and for adults. And that when we don't understand behavior, it's really coming back to that, this sense of safety. Are children feeling safe? Are we feeling safe? So I know it's a larger conversation.
It's absolutely, and as you're talking, there's so many things that come to my mind, and our belief system as well, or how we are raised, and looking at that now as teachers or educators or parents, and the opportunity for that deepened awareness of self, and when we kind of chatted before our conversation, that is so important, putting on our own mask before we put on other masks, right? And allowing ourselves to recognize that feeling of, okay, what is the language I'm using? Am I always using the words exhausted or struggling? Or because, that also, translates over to the children. And I just have to share, I found an old letter that I wrote my grandmother in 2004.
Yeah.
And I was cleaning out some files and I thought, oh, this is beautiful. And I opened it up. And to see my belief system then I was saying things like, oh, you know what, things have changed and times have changed, grandma. And it's interesting that we got to work harder for what we want in life. And I'm now reflecting back how many years later going, my belief system was that then as well. And that awareness piece. But as you're talking, so much comes to me around that, because as educators and as our ability to teach and to mentor these children, that is a very special and honorable role, right? And it's not to say we have to be perfect, but that awareness piece of how we're showing up, I think is super key. And it kind of rolls into the next question, right? It's
Yeah.
just like when we talk about some ways that adults can find balance and find that inner calm, and why does that matter so much from your perspective?
Well, and I appreciate that story about that letter because that's, for all of us, we're constantly changing in a state of constant becoming. So I love that you're able to reflect on that. And, the question is interesting because I think that our natural state of being is really that of vitality and wellness and health. It doesn't happen 100% of the time, but, reading those navigational system in our body. I actually say that because I noticed that yesterday I happened to have 2 classes and a bunch of meetings, and I was on Zoom for literally 7 hours. And then I was on 4 more hours on my computer, just typing and preparing and things like that. And human beings are not meant to be near electronic devices, that long. And so I'm feeling like a little tired, not as vibrant and, alive today. And so the first thing I did when I woke up, and I think you'll appreciate this, I went for a walk. I mean, here I am in New York City and it's concrete, all over, but there are places and spaces where you can connect with nature. And that's what I did. I was just with the trees and the birds and felt a shift in that. So it ties into that question, what are these common ways? It's really tuning in and noticing, when we're not feeling, um, our best. What are those kinds of things that help us to kind of get back into balance? And so, being in nature is for me probably the top thing. And also, that idea of safety, knowing what makes us feel this internal sense of safety um, and calm. And for some, it's music, and for some, it's quiet meditation. Everybody has different tools in their treasure chest or their toolbox. Um, I think that it's important to create these environments in our own spaces, whether it's the classroom or our homes, especially now during this time. Most people are spending more time at home than ever. Does the space create a sense of harmony or joy or beauty? When we walk in, do we smile? Do we enjoy being in that space? I think of children as well. Notice where they're most happy, or when they might be a little more, I don't know, more active or seeming more sad or distracted. I know we'll probably talk about that. I just want to say a couple things about, the adults though, because I appreciate what you were talking about, how you put on your what is that called? Your air mask,
Yes.
um, oxygen mask. Yeah.
Oxygen mask,
Yeah.
yes.
It's been so long since I've flown. I
Me
can't even
too.
remember. But it seems to almost get old, but it's such an important point that as adults we have to take care of ourselves first by putting that oxygen mask on before we take care of children or others that we're traveling with. And so when we're feeling kind of safe, not kind of safe and balanced and calm, and it's really about having a steady mind, in a way that's what mindfulness is. It's having um, our focus and being able to focus the mind so your mind is steady and not running 100 miles an hour like minds tend to do. So I think it's really just tuning into ourselves and noticing, that navigational system.
Beautiful. When you're talking, I reference my own practice is just sitting in silence when I wake up and being in that blissful brainwave state, right? It's that easy, blissful. And somebody once said to me, when you get quiet, what gets loud? And just be aware of your thoughts, right? And every day is different. And I felt an energy shift from yesterday as well, where I remind myself, like, happiness is a habit, right? I have a choice to be happy. And there might be things poking at me each and every day. And I'm now looking at them from an observer saying, oh, I see you. I see you. But I would have never been able to get to that place unless I was doing my own inner work and working from the inside out and removing that reaction to more responding.
Yeah.
And being just aware of what's happening around me now when I'm so, quote unquote, analogy being poked, I can say, okay, this is how I'm feeling. I recognize that I need some space and time. Maybe it's a mama self care break. There's often times where I joke around, I'm either hiding in the bathroom, right? Or finding a little cozy corner to just sit and take those few breaths. But I keep going back to that awareness piece that before I was doing any type of mindfulness practice, I was just trigger happy, right? Something would poke and I would just respond in a reactive state. So I really love what you're saying. And, for you spending time and going to find the birds, to find the grass, to find the trees, even in, the city that you're in, to know where to go to navigate that. So I just want to say, a little selfie high five and, really inspire by that, because that also helps your energy kind of realign and rebalance after being on the screen. So I love that. Thank you for
Oh,
sharing.
thank you. And yeah, can I just say, I really appreciate what you're talking about in terms of being able to respond as opposed to react. Many times if we're not in a state of having a quiet mind, yeah, we tend to just, it's like a knee knee-jerk reaction, and we're reacting all the time to what's going on, as opposed to kind of being that witness, or just noticing and then choosing how to respond. So yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate that as well.
Thank you. And when you're talking about safety, and I'm just all these things going on in my mind, the older version of myself didn't feel safe to feel, didn't feel safe to express, right? Those old patterns, those old belief systems. And by doing some practice and doing that connection piece, I felt safe within inside of me, if that makes sense, right? And so I guess that kind of rolls into our next question. How do we support children feel safe? And what types of things can we do to foster that within that environment?
Mhm. I appreciate the question, because again, if we're not feeling kind of safe and grounded, it's really hard to do that for children. We can say words and we can, it's just not authentic. So there are so many ways, I think, as we just said, being aware of our language, both to ourselves and, to children. But I also think it should be playful and fun. And, whether we're in a classroom, the outdoors, at home. By the way, I think classrooms are really the outdoors. I mean, it's not like the four walls, in terms of a space. And so one of my favorite things to do actually is breathing. And I do that with my students. I teach graduate students who are already teachers or preparing to become teachers. And we breathe in class for 2 minutes every day, or every time we meet. I tend to use a breathing app. I'll just give it a shout out. There are a lot on the market. I've been using this for years. It's super simple. It's international. It's free. It's just called the Breathing App, and it's a free
Beautiful.
download, and you just kind of follow the breath with the sound or the visual, depending on what you prefer. But I love that kind of thing to do with children as well. It's not something you just do when you're stressed. Breathing is something to invite into our lives on a regular basis every day, to build up the practice. So when we do feel stressed, it's easier to bounce back. We're more resilient. Um, and it feels great to breathe. I mean, just to kind of oxygenate, our cells, and to really feel alive. So breathing is one thing I love, love, love doing with children. I brought a couple of just playful things with me.
I love to play.
Oh, well, I had a feeling you did. And another thing that I love is, something like this, like a squeezy toy. Everybody has different preferences. And so for some children, just kind of squeezing something soft and malleable like this helps them focus and helps them feel kind of safe and calm. This might be really annoying for another child. So just because two children have a disability label, the same disability label doesn't mean they'll like the same things, just as if two children were Chinese, or two children had blue eyes, or, everybody's different. So really taking that time to understand our own navigational systems, but also to really be aware of what children are communicating to us through their behavior. We are, they, let me say it this way, children won't have the sophisticated language necessarily to say, I'm upset, or, I'm feeling scared, or I'm not feeling safe. So if we can unwrap that and unpack it, and notice more. So that's one thing. Some children really need some proprioceptive uh, feeling. And so even giving like a hug, whether it's a self hug or, that kind of thing, is super easy, doesn't take a lot of time. I also like, here's some eye pillow, just super fun, really soft, for breathing, or for just having quiet time, having just quiet stillness and silence. You were talking before, we're always on the go. And it seems, at least here in New York City, and elsewhere. And so just being able to sit in silence, and stillness. And here's one other thing. I just kind of grabbed a couple of
I love it.
things. Just having beautiful sounds in our spaces, whether again at school or at home or both. This can be really calming and soothing. And sometimes if it's in a certain place, a child can just, you know, come over and knock it or use it for a transition that may be taking place going from one space to another. So those were just a couple. And if it's okay, I have a couple of books that I just love that I think parents and educators would love too, in terms of just understanding how to support children, you know, to
Beautiful.
feel safe, to feel whole. And here's one, I use this in my, using it now this semester. It's called Troublemakers. And it's by Carla Shalaby. It's Lessons in Freedom from Young Children at School. This is super powerful, really great
Beautiful.
book. Another one is The Whole Brain Child. You know that, but yeah, this is awesome by Daniel Siegel, MD, and PhD Tina Payne Bryson. Just awesome advice, guidance, great explanations as well. Here's another book that I used last semester. This is written for parents, but it's great for educators. It's called Sensory Integration and the Child. And it's the 25th anniversary edition by Dr. Jean Ayres. And also, I didn't say, but Dr. Carla Chalabi. So anyway, just some resources if parents want to understand more about, you know, regulation, about kind of the whole child, about finding balance and calm. Um, and so there's so many more, but you know, that idea of just helping children feel safe and calm. And part of that has to do with helping them anticipate what's coming up during the day. You know, sometimes a visual schedule, whether it's of the day or even the week. Even if, you know, children are not reading, have the words paired with, you know, an activity card. And also feelings. I think it's really important to talk a lot about feelings and for families and educators to talk about their feelings too, you know, to kind of model, you know, I'm feeling this way because, and here's what I'm going to do about it. And in the book, The Power of Presence, I recall my daughter's now 25, but when she was very young, there was one moment I'll never forget. She was really upset about something. And she came in and she said, I'm so mad. And then like a minute later, she said, I'm going to go read a book. And, you know, without prompting from me. And it was just her own way of identifying how she felt and what she was going to do about it. So I think it's very individualized, and yet there are lots of tools and lots of tools to help children on their journey. They're already present and mindful. We kind of have to step out of their way, I think, many times.
I love your shares. Thank you. And it just stems, I bring in a little personal experience, right? I have three children, ages 4, 7, and 10. And my parenting style, based on my own, I would say, personal knowledge and development of myself ever evolving as, student of life, I've recognized behaviors shift and change. So my oldest child would always need to have that what's next, feeling safe, very predictable. If plans changed, it was like a complete meltdown. So I was always preparing for what's next, what's next. So my other two children always had that safety of what's happening next. But it was on a very different scale because we would always see the aftermath if things change. So then we had to talk about, well, everything is ever changing. And even if we set you up for something that's happening, just know that it could change. So we worked through that. And then what's really interesting is my youngest, she's very sensory sensitive. And every day she'll come home from her program and she wants to chew gum. And my partner would say, oh, she's getting addicted to gum. But I recognize that the chewing grounds her in, and she has this routine. Each day she comes home, you can see her just kind of like let loose, and she wants to chew. But if I just allowed my stereotype of like, oh, this is, gum is an addiction or whatever, and I mean, she's chewing aspartame free gum, there's no harm, but recognizing that she needs that to ground into, just kind of leave her day. And so as an observer, as a parent, I've been able to see, a lot more breath work with my 4-year-old, because that's what I've been living into. And that modeling behavior of saying, you know what, Mommy's had a really long day and there I am starfishing on the floor or even during class and they come and join me, but then they recognize and then I see it. My middle child will come home and starfish on the floor. Like, yay, it's like that celebration because or singing a song that I wrote to raise my vibe and they start to sing it so I can see them using this lifestyle and I can then pick it up going, "Oh, all right, I can recognize that they too are now feeling how I felt and they're starfishing, or they're raising their vibe and they're singing the song, or they're chewing gum to better connect mind body connection." So it's a beautiful experience of that awareness. And I think as a parent or an educator or a teacher, whatever your role is as a human, it's that beautiful, when everyone says, "Oh, mindfulness," well, that's a big word, but it's just a way of life. It's that meaningful connection with everything on a deeper level of just having that peace and calm and choice to think a different way. So I absolutely love hearing you speak, and my wheels just turn inside. And wanted to share that because it's interesting to observe and to
Yeah.
recognize the tools that they can then gravitate to and come back to you to reinforce that learning.
And that's exactly what happens. And I appreciate that because, you're setting the stage. And you reminded me, I forgot to say something that I had wanted to just touch upon, when you were talking about the chewing gum as a way to ground. I think, not I think, I know that our language does shape our thinking. And so we often use, and I talk a lot about this in the book, that my background actually is with children with disabilities. That's kind of my passion. Diversity of all kinds, of course, but the idea that deficit oriented discourse or narratives or speaking is really how we generally talk about and think about people, especially children with disabilities. So if they're having trouble with self-regulation, we talk about it in kind of a negative way, or, "Oh, that child is so active, bouncing off the walls." And we do that in our society, in schools especially. And so part of it is noticing that, and it's again a larger conversation, but noticing that having a disability or being labeled with a disability or different or a way of learning, it's not negative, and it's not from a deficit perspective. It had stemmed from the medical model. That's why, it originated. So we want to kind of fix things. That's the medical model. There's something wrong. Let's fix it. As opposed to understanding children are whole human beings and ideas around disability, and other kinds of diversity within our human variation, are really socially constructed. There are these beliefs that keep getting told over and over again, and they're ingrained. So I dedicated a whole chapter in the book. I mean, the whole book is really about that as well, kind of unpacking, these deficit-oriented discourses around difference, which really has a lot to do with ourselves making the choice about how we speak, how we refer to children, how we talk to children, how
So,
we, yeah, label their behavior. So thank you for reminding me. That was a great example. And I appreciate you letting me
well,
go on
thank
that
you as
path.
well. I know we wanted to talk a little bit about visualization. So if you could just touch point on some of the benefits of that and possibly, offer the opportunity to bring us through maybe a mini visualization.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So, visualizations are great for adults. I love them. Children love them too, because it's just about imagining and pretending, and it's really fun. So I'll just leave it there. I mean, there's just, we can go on and on about the benefits, but I'd rather take you through one if that's
Perfect.
okay.
I would love
And
that.
so I'm just going to invite folks, if you are so inclined to either stay sitting. You can lay down or you can stand up for this one. And I'm just going to take everybody through. And this is really about being strong like a tree, just tall and still. And Is that okay to kind of take people through this?
I would love
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And this was developed, by the way, with a graduate student. She's my graduate assistant, Andrea Wetzel, at Montclair State University, who has two children. And so her kids love this, and we incorporated it into the book. And so if wherever you are standing, sitting, or lying down, just gently close your eyes and feel your eyelids touch. And now take a big, deep breath through your nose and breathe it out through your mouth. And take another deep breath in and then breathe it out. Just do that one more time, breathing in slowly, naturally, and then breathing out. Keep your focus on your breath as you breathe in and out. And keep breathing like that. And just, I invite you to open your imagination. So picture your bare feet, no shoes on. You're standing on the ground and your feet are firmly grounded in the earth. Your feet are so strong. Your feet feel so good as they are planted in the dirt. So now imagine your feet becoming the roots of a tree. See yourself as a tree in a beautiful big forest. There's green everywhere and the air smells so fresh. Your roots burrow slowly and deeply into the earth. Your roots mixed with the rich soil, and you are now completely connected to the earth. Imagine that your roots go very deep into the earth and you feel completely grounded. You feel stable, safe, and secure. Just notice how that feels. Now see your whole body as a tree. Your feet are your roots connecting you to the earth. Your legs are strong and still. Your belly is strong and still. Your back is strong and still. Your arms are outstretched. Just imagine waving branches. Your hands are waving like leaves, and the leaves are rustling. So think about how your tree makes you feel. You are still, you are tall, you are strong, and you are safe. In a few seconds, we're going to open our eyes. But even though your eyes are open, you can still take this feeling of safety and stillness and strength with you. And you can visit this place in your imagination anytime you would like to have more stillness or strength inside. Ready now? Start to wiggle your fingers, your toes. You can start gently moving. And when you are feeling ready, you can slowly, very slowly open your eyes. Welcome back.
So beautiful. I love that. And I just appreciate bringing me through that because even sitting here and connecting with you, it just brings me back into my body instantly. And I find it very interesting because children have just beautiful imaginations. And then as adults, when do we visualize and imagine unless it's, time that we spend initiating that? You go to school and everyone's like, stop daydreaming, focus, focus, focus. And it's so beautiful to just imagine, explore, visualize, and go on these beautiful journeys in your mind. So I just want to share my gratitude for that experience. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you, because I love what you're saying. Children are naturally imaginative and curious, and they wonder and discover. And, our job is really just to support them, or at least get out of the way so they can, feel that kind of safety and that excitement and eagerness.
I love
So,
that.
yeah, thank you. Thank you for that
Beautiful.
feedback.
So I know that we talked at the beginning. We kind of put a little plug in about a book draw. So I'd like to offer our listeners here how it works is we give you a little code and you get to email it in. So on your speaker page, all below will be these links. So if our listeners are frantically trying to grab a pen, don't worry about it. We'll put it all below. So the code word that we're going to give you for this book giveaway is the power of presence. So what we invite you to do is email in to mindfulplaysummit@gmail.com. Again, the link is below, and just have that in your subject line. And what we will do is we will take all of our entries and pull a draw and announce it at the end of the summit, May the 9th. So please get your codes in. If you need to rewatch, absolutely rewatch. This recording will be up for 24 hours. And I just want to say thank you so much, Elizabeth. It has been a pleasure connecting with you, learning more about you and what you do. And I really appreciate you coming on to speak with us today.
Oh, thank you, Crystal. I loved getting to know you and having a conversation. It just feel like we could talk for 3 more hours, and I really
Absolutely.
appreciate the opportunity to be here and learn about the work you do too. So thank you.
And
Thank
thank
you
you so
very much.
much for bringing us through the visualization. I really liked that. All right. So, everybody watching today, have yourself a beautiful day and thank you for watching.